In the smoke-choked depths of Las Vegas's pit, a calm stranger was about to be dragged into chaos. What began as a savage underground match turned lethal when Mike Tyson smashed a bottle into a jagged weapon and pointed it at Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris wasn't your typical bystander. For years, he had been a world karate champion, a black belt across disciplines, and a man whose calm precision ended fights before they began. When Tyson charged with the broken glass, he didn't realize he was lunging into the trap of a master whose discipline was deadlier than brute force. Norris's surgical counter ignited a chain of events that would ripple far beyond the basement ring. What began as a drunken provocation would become a battle etched into myth. Las Vegas and every witness to that night would never forget the moment Iron Mike bled for underestimating a man of silence. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Las Vegas, 1994. The air hung thick with smoke and anticipation, seeping into the concrete walls of an abandoned warehouse 3 blocks off the Strip. This wasn't the glittering, sanitized boxing of the casinos upstairs. This was the real Vegas, the underground that pulsed beneath the neon facade. The Pit, they called it. No glossy advertisements, no corporate sponsors, just raw combat and cash exchanging hands. 5 stories below street level, hidden beneath a defunct casino, the Pit thrived on whispers and private invitations. It was where fighters came to make their reputation, where legends sometimes appeared to witness the next generation, and where chaos and glory were separated by a hairline fracture. Dante, the hype man. Vega strutted across the blood-stained canvas, microphone in hand, gold chains swinging against his open silk shirt. Once a middleweight contender with fast hands and a glass jaw, now he was the king of this underground empire. His fighters, his rules, his crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice boomed, cutting through the low murmurs of the packed arena. 300 spectators crowded onto metal bleachers, the air electric with the smell of sweat and spilled whiskey. Tonight, we break bones and make legends. The crowd erupted, stomping feet against metal, creating a thunderous rhythm. Vega soaked it in, arms spread wide. This was his church, and violence was his sermon. In the red corner, undefeated in 16 underground battles, the man they call the Butcher of Reno, Marcus Donovan. A hulking figure climbed through the ropes, all raw muscle and violent intent. He raised tattooed fists to scattered cheers. And in the blue corner, making his pit debut, former Golden Gloves champion, Lightning Ray Jackson. The younger fighter bounced nervously, eyes darting around the crowd. Vega could smell the fear on him. Fresh meat. The Pit loved fresh meat. But as Vega turned to exit the ring, his attention caught on a commotion near the VIP section. The crowd parted, whispers spreading like ripples in water. Vega's breath caught in his throat. Chuck Norris moved through the crowd without effort, the sea of bodies naturally giving way. Dressed in simple jeans and a black button-down, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing to prove. No entourage, no flashy entrance, just presence. "Holy shit," Vega muttered into his microphone, then caught himself. "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems we have an unexpected guest of honor tonight. The legend himself, Chuck Norris." A mix of cheers and stunned murmurs rippled through the crowd. Chuck offered a small, polite nod in acknowledgement, then took a seat in the front row. His posture was relaxed yet alert, hands resting casually on his knees. His expression revealed nothing, neither approval nor disgust at the brutality about to unfold. Vega's mind raced with possibilities. Chuck Norris in his club, this could put the pit on the map. Real recognition from a legitimate legend. Before he could process this fully, another disturbance erupted at the entrance. The crowd's energy shifted instantly, shock transforming into something electric and dangerous. Even without turning, Vega knew exactly who had arrived. Only one man commanded that kind of presence. Mike Tyson pushed through the crowd, a human bulldozer in motion. Unlike Norris's quiet entrance, Tyson demanded attention, gold-capped teeth flashing in a predatory grin, muscles rippling beneath a tight black t-shirt. A bottle of cognac dangled from his fingers, already half empty. "Start the fucking fight!" Tyson roared, and the crowd responded with wild cheers. Vega nearly tripped over his own feet, rushing to greet him. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is unprecedented. The baddest man on the planet, Iron Mike Tyson, graces us with his presence." Tyson ignored him, surveying the room with sharp, darting eyes. His gaze locked onto the VIP section and narrowed when he spotted Norris. For a fleeting moment, something dangerous flashed across his face, recognition perhaps, or challenge. Norris met his stare, expression unchanged. He made no move to acknowledge Tyson beyond the briefest eye contact before returning his attention to the ring. Across the arena, Rosa Martinez leaned against the far wall, arms crossed over her chest. Once one of the most feared female fighters in 3 weight classes, now retired and running her own gym, she watched the spectacle with a fighter's analytical eye. She'd seen enough pre-fight tension to read the room like a book. "This ain't about the scheduled fight anymore," she muttered to no one in particular, nodding toward the unfolding drama. "Tyson's hunting, and Norris isn't playing the game." The younger fighter beside her, one of her students, looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Watch," she said simply. "Tyson needs to be the biggest predator in any room. Norris doesn't care about that game, and it'll drive Tyson crazy, like a shark smelling blood." Inside the ring, the scheduled fighters shifted uncomfortably. Forgotten in the sudden presence of fighting royalty, Vega, recognizing the moment, waved for the bell. "Let's get this started," he shouted, trying to recapture the momentum. The bell rang, and the fighters circled each other cautiously. But the crowd's attention remained split, half watching the fight, half watching the simmering tension between the two legends at ringside. Tyson took another long pull from his bottle, then shouted at the fighters, "Hit him, goddammit! This ain't dancing." Norris remained still, watching the technical aspects of the match with quiet interest. 3 rows back, a man in a flashy suit nudged his companion. $100, says Tyson causes trouble before the night's over. "No bet," his friend answered. "That's a guarantee." The first round ended with a flurry of punches that sent Jackson stumbling back against the ropes. As the fighters returned to their corners, Tyson pushed forward to the edge of the ring. "You call that fighting?" he taunted, voice carrying over the crowd. "I've seen better technique in schoolyard brawls." The Butcher of Reno glared down at Tyson but knew better than to challenge him directly. Tyson denied the reaction he sought, turned his attention back to Norris. "Hey Norris, you think these guys could last 10 seconds in a real fight? Or you just here researching for another B-movie?" The crowd hushed momentarily, anticipating Norris's response. There was none. Chuck simply maintained his position, his focus unwavering on the fight about to resume. If he heard Tyson's taunt, nothing in his demeanor revealed it. Vega, sensing a promotional opportunity, slid closer to Tyson. "The legend himself doesn't seem impressed by our fighters," he announced, gesturing toward Norris. "Perhaps we need to show him what the pit is really about." Tyson's eyes narrowed, his body tensing like a coiled spring. The cognac bottle dangled loosely from his fingers as he fixed his stare on Norris's impassive profile. Rosa Martinez pushed away from the wall, recognizing the dangerous current running through the room. "This is about to get ugly," she murmured, making her way closer to the ringside. The bell rang for round 2. Inside the ring, fists connected with flesh. Blood sprayed across the canvas, and the crowd roared its approval. But the real fight, the one everyone sensed was coming, had yet to begin. Tyson took another long drink, draining his bottle, his gaze never leaving Norris. The flush of alcohol colored his cheeks, loosening whatever restraints remained on his notorious temper. "Someone better wake up, Karate Man," Tyson called out, loud enough for half the arena to hear. He might miss the action. As if in answer, a vicious right hook dropped Jackson to the canvas. The butcher stood over him, chest heaving, awaiting the referee's count. 10, 9, 8. The crowd chanted the countdown, bloodlust rising. Chuck Norris watched without expression, a small island of calm in a sea of chaos. 7, 6, 5. Tyson moved closer to Norris, invading his space with deliberate intent. 4, 3, 2. The fallen fighter struggled to rise, failed, collapsed back to the canvas. 1. The bell rang with finality. The Butcher of Reno raised his arms in victory as medics rushed to attend to the unconscious Jackson. In that moment of peak frenzy, Mike Tyson made his move. He stepped directly in front of Norris, blocking his view of the ring, and sneered down at him. "You think you're too good for this place, Norris? Too clean for real fighting?" The crowd's attention swiveled, the knockout already forgotten. This was what they had unconsciously been waiting for. From the moment the two legends entered the same room, Norris finally looked up, meeting Tyson's gaze directly. His voice, when it came, was calm and measured. "Excuse me," he said simply, neither challenging nor submissive. Tyson's face contorted. "Excuse you? That's all you got to say? Excuse you?" The empty cognac bottle trembled in his grasp, his knuckles whitening around the neck. Rosa Martinez shouldered her way through the crowd, trying to reach the confrontation before disaster struck. But she knew she wouldn't make it in time. Dante Vega, recognizing gold when he saw it, raised his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems we might have an unscheduled main event brewing." His words were the spark to Tyson's powder keg. With a roar that seemed to shake the foundations of the underground arena, Mike Tyson raised the bottle high and brought it smashing down on the edge of a nearby table. Glass exploded, shards scattering across the concrete floor like deadly confetti. The jagged neck of the bottle remained in his grip as he pointed it at Norris, his face twisted in fury. "Now," he growled, "you've got my attention." The crowd fell into a stunned, breathless silence. The broken bottle dripped amber liquid onto the floor between them. Chuck Norris looked at the shattered glass, then back at Tyson's face. Something shifted in his eyes, not fear, not anger, but the quiet recognition that peace was no longer an option. Slowly, deliberately, he stood. The jagged bottleneck glistened in Tyson's hand, catching the harsh overhead lights. Droplets of cognac splattered the concrete between the two men like blood spatter at a crime scene. The crowd had frozen into a tableau of open mouths and wide eyes, collectively holding their breath. Chuck Norris stood unhurried, straightening to his full height with deliberate calm. He didn't back away from the broken glass or Tyson's seething presence. Instead, he simply adjusted the cuffs of his shirt, a man preparing for business rather than battle. "That was unnecessary," Norris said, voice level and controlled. Tyson's laugh was sharp and dangerous. Unnecessary? What's unnecessary is you sitting there all high and mighty, judging real fighters when you make your living play acting on camera. The broken bottle wavered in his grip, its jagged edge catching light as it moved. The crowd instinctively pulled back, creating a widening circle around the two legends, a makeshift arena forming without prompting. Dante Vega hovered at the edge of this new battleground, microphone half raised, torn between professional duty to hype the confrontation and basic self-preservation. His eyes darted toward the exits, calculating how quickly security could reach them if they would even dare interfere with Mike Tyson in full rage. "Listen up!" Tyson's voice boomed across the now silent room. "Mr. Hollywood martial artist here thinks he's better than this place." He gestured broadly with the bottle, forcing nearby spectators to flinch back. "Thinks he's better than me?" Norris shook his head slightly. "I've never said that, Mike." "You don't have to say it." Tyson took a step closer, the broken bottle now inches from Norris's chest. "It's written all over your face. The way you sit there. All quiet and superior." From her position now just a few yards away, Rosa Martinez watched the confrontation with a fighter's understanding. She'd seen this dynamic countless times, the loudest fighter trying to intimidate the composed one, mistaking stillness for weakness. But in Norris's eyes, she recognized something that Tyson, blinded by his own rage, couldn't see. Absolute readiness. "Someone should stop this," muttered a spectator beside her. Rosa shook her head. "Too late for that. Sometimes the only way out is through." Back in the center of attention, Norris maintained his composure. He hadn't shifted into a fighting stance, hadn't raised his hands in defense. But Rosa could see the subtle changes in his posture, weight balanced perfectly, feet positioned for optimal stability, the almost imperceptible tension in his core muscles. "Put the bottle down, Mike," Norris said, his tone neither commanding nor pleading, simply stating a reasonable course of action. "This isn't about you and me." Tyson's eyes narrowed. "Everything's about you and me now. The movies, the posters, the magazines, all that Chuck Norris is invincible bullshit. You've been living off a fake reputation, while I've been proving myself in real blood." The broken bottle edged closer. A thin line of red appeared on Norris's shirt, where the glass had just barely made contact, not breaking skin, but making its threat clear. A collective gasp swept through the room. Someone whispered, "He actually cut Chuck Norris." Vega finally found his voice again. "Gentlemen, gentlemen, while we appreciate the enthusiasm, perhaps we could channel this energy into something more structured." His eyes gleamed with opportunism. "The pit would be honored to host a proper exhibition between two legends," Tyson snorted. "Exhibition? You think I need rules to handle this movie star?" "Rules exist to protect you as much as your opponent," Norris said quietly. The statement hung in the air for a moment before Tyson processed its implication. His face darkened further, veins standing out on his forehead. "Protect me?" The bottle slashed through the air in a wide arc, causing nearby spectators to stumble back. "I don't need protection from anyone." Rosa Martinez stepped forward then, inserting herself into the dangerous space. Despite being shorter than both men, she commanded attention with her scarred knuckles and unflinching gaze. "This isn't the place, Tyson," she said firmly. "You want to prove something? Do it properly. Not with a broken bottle like some back-alley drunk." Tyson's focus shifted to her, recognition flickering across his features. "Martinez, three-time champion. What do you care how I handle my business?" "Because I respect the fight game," she answered evenly. "And this," she gestured to the broken bottle, "this isn't fighting. It's just ugly." For a moment, something vulnerable flashed behind Tyson's eyes. Shame, perhaps, or a flicker of sobriety cutting through the alcohol haze. The bottle lowered slightly. Then a voice from the crowd shattered the moment. "Tyson's scared of Norris. Look at him backing down." The taunt, anonymous and cowardly from the safety of distance, rekindled Tyson's rage instantly. He spun toward the sound, bottle raised. "Who said that? Who said that?" The crowd shifted uneasily, no one claiming the words. Norris used the distraction to step smoothly between Tyson and the crowd, a subtle movement that nevertheless placed him in the direct path of Tyson's anger. "Mike," he said, voice still calm but firmer now. "This stops, now." Tyson's attention snapped back to Norris, fury redoubling. "You don't tell me when to stop." The bottle slashed downward in a vicious arc aimed directly at Norris's face. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. What happened next occurred so quickly that many in the audience would later disagree about the details. Norris's hand seemed to materialize around Tyson's wrist, stopping the bottle's descent with such precision that it halted a hair's breadth from his own cheek. No dramatic techniques, no showy counter, just perfect timing and iron control. For a suspended moment, they stood frozen in that position. Tyson's arm extended in attack, Norris's hand wrapped around his wrist, with just enough pressure to stop the motion without causing pain. Their eyes locked in silent communication. "You could have broken my wrist," Tyson said, surprise momentarily overriding his anger. "I could have," Norris acknowledged. "But that's not why I'm here." The broken bottle slipped from Tyson's fingers, clattering to the concrete. The sound broke the spell that had held the room in thrall. Dante Vega, never one to miss an opportunity, raised his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we're witnessing is history. Two of the greatest fighters of our time, face to face in the pit." But Tyson wasn't finished. Freed from Norris's grip, he stepped back, hands curling into familiar fists. "You think stopping one punch proves anything? Let's settle this for real." He shed his jacket in a single violent motion, tossing it aside. The crowd murmured in growing excitement as Tyson rolled his massive shoulders, bouncing lightly on the balls of his feet, the same pre-fight ritual millions had watched on television. "No bottles, no tricks," Tyson continued, voice dropping to its dangerous register. "Just you and me, Norris. Right here, right now." Norris hadn't moved, his expression thoughtful rather than intimidated. "There's nothing to settle, Mike." "The hell there isn't." Tyson's voice rose again. "For years, everyone's been asking who'd win, you or me. Time to answer the question." The crowd began to chant, the bloodlust that had briefly subsided now surging back stronger than before. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" Rosa Martinez shook her head in disgust, but even she couldn't deny the primal pull of the potential matchup. Two legends. Two completely different fighting philosophies, raw power versus technical precision. Norris glanced around the room, taking in the hungry eyes of the spectators. His gaze lingered on the ring, where medics were still attending to the fallen fighter from the earlier bout, a young man who'd entered the pit seeking glory and would leave with concussion protocols. "This isn't the way," he said, addressing not just Tyson but the entire room. "Fighting should be about respect, not spectacle." "Respect is earned in blood," Tyson countered, beginning to circle Norris with predatory intent. "Or are you afraid I'll expose you as a fraud?" The accusation hung in the air, heavy and pointed. Dante Vega, sensing the momentum shift, gestured frantically to his staff. "Clear the center. Give them room." To the crowd, he announced, "This is unprecedented, folks. A once-in-a-lifetime showdown. Security guards began pushing back the spectators, forming an impromptu ring in the middle of the floor. Someone rolled out the canvas mats from the official fighting area, creating a proper surface. Throughout this flurry of activity, Norris remained still, his expression unreadable. He had neither accepted nor declined Tyson's challenge. Yet the machinery of the inevitable confrontation moved forward around him. Rosa Martinez approached him during this momentary lull. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "Walk away with dignity." Norris looked at her, a sad smile touching the corners of his mouth. Sometimes walking away causes more damage than standing your ground. He's drunk, angry, and 20 pounds heavier, she persisted. This isn't a fair fight. Fair fights only exist in tournaments, Norris replied. Everything else is just survival. With that, he finally moved, stepping onto the hastily prepared canvas. The simple action sent a jolt of electricity through the crowd, which erupted in cheers and renewed chanting. Tyson's predatory grin widened as he bounded onto the mat, shadowboxing aggressively. "Now we see what's real. And what's Hollywood," he called out, playing to the audience. Vega scrambled into the makeshift ring, microphone clutched like a lifeline. "Ladies and gentlemen, by some miracle of fate, we are about to witness the impossible Iron Mike Tyson versus the legendary Chuck Norris in an unsanctioned, no-holds-barred contest." The crowd's roar threatened to bring down the ceiling of the underground venue. Money changed hands rapidly as impromptu betting pools formed throughout the audience. No referee, no rounds, no rules. Vega continued, voice cracking with excitement. "This is raw combat in its purest form." He extended his arms toward both fighters. "Gentlemen, are you ready to make history?" Tyson bounced on his toes, fists raised, eyes locked on his opponent with laser focus. "Been ready my whole life." All eyes turned to Norris, who stood centered and calm. He had removed his dress shirt, revealing a simple black t-shirt underneath. No dramatic posturing, no intimidation tactics. Just the quiet preparation of a man who had faced combat more times than anyone in the room could imagine. "I'm not here to fight you, Mike," he said, voice cutting clearly through the noise. "I'm here to help you stop fighting yourself." The cryptic statement momentarily confused Tyson, his brow furrowing. Then his expression hardened again. "Save the fortune cookie wisdom. Use your fists instead of your mouth." Vega, sensing it was time to step away from the brewing storm, raised his hand dramatically. 3. The crowd joined the countdown, hundreds of voices becoming one. 2. Tyson's muscles coiled visibly, a predator preparing to pounce. 1. Norris finally shifted his stance subtle, economical, nothing flashy. "Fight!" Mike Tyson exploded forward the instant Vega's hand chopped down, unleashing the same terrifying burst of speed and power that had made him the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. His first punch, a devastating left hook aimed at Norris's temple, cut through the air with such force that front-row spectators felt the displaced air against their faces. It connected with nothing. Norris had shifted not dramatically, not with theatrical evasion, but with the minimal necessary movement to let the blow pass harmlessly by his ear. The small adjustment left him perfectly balanced, while Tyson's momentum carried him slightly past his intended target. Confusion flashed across Tyson's face, quickly replaced by renewed determination. He pivoted sharply, launching a blistering combination: jab, cross, hook, textbook punches, delivered with extraordinary speed. Again, Norris moved just enough to neutralize each attack. No wasted motion, no counter, yet just precise defensive positioning that made Tyson's punches fall short by millimeters or slide off without transferring their full force. "Stand and fight, damn you," Tyson growled, frustration mounting as he launched another volley. The crowd's initial roar had subsided into a murmur of confusion. They had expected either a quick, brutal Tyson victory or some cinematic martial arts display from Norris. Instead, they were witnessing something more subtle and, to the untrained eye, almost anticlimactic, a masterclass in defensive fighting. Rosa Martinez, however, watched with growing appreciation. "Beautiful," she murmured. "He's making Tyson beat himself." The young fighter beside her looked puzzled. "But he's not even hitting back." "He doesn't need to," she explained. "Tyson's burning energy with each missed shot. Frustration makes him load up more, miss worse. It's like trying to punch smoke." Inside the makeshift ring, that frustration was transforming Tyson's face. His eyes widened, nostrils flared with each heaving breath. He had expected resistance, had prepared for pain but not for ineffectiveness. "Fight me!" he roared, launching a haymaker that would have decapitated a lesser opponent. Norris slipped it again, but this time countered with a quick, sharp jab to Tyson's solar plexus. Not a power punch, but precisely placed to disrupt breathing. The first clean blow of the confrontation. Tyson's breath hitched, more from surprise than pain. Something dangerous glinted in his eyes, the recognition that this was, indeed, a real fight. He adjusted his approach, tightening his punches, cutting off the ring with better footwork. His next combination was more controlled. Less wild jab, jab, straight right, left hook to the body. Norris acknowledged the improved technique with a small nod, even as he continued his elusive defense. This time, however, he returned fire with a quick counter to Tyson's cheek again, not loaded with power, but technical and precise. A thin trickle of blood appeared at the corner of Tyson's mouth. He swiped at it with his glove, looked at the red smear, then grinned ferally. "Now we're talking," he said, his voice dropping to a lower register. What followed was a masterclass in contrasting fighting styles. Tyson pressed forward relentlessly, using the bobbing, weaving peek-a-boo style that had made him infamous explosive power, packaged in unpredictable angles. Each punch carried knockout potential, the product of genetics, training, and pure fighting instinct. Norris met this storm with technical precision, economy of movement, and strategic counters. Where Tyson was all explosive energy, Norris was controlled efficiency. The difference between a wildfire and a laser. For nearly 5 minutes, they continued this deadly dance, neither man clearly dominating. Tyson landed occasional heavy blows that would have felled ordinary fighters, while Norris accumulated more frequent but less devastating counters. The crowd, initially disappointed by the lack of a quick knockout, now watched in rapt attention, witnessing something rarer than spectacle, genuine high-level combat between two masters of different disciplines. Dante Vega circled the makeshift ring, microphone dangling forgotten at his side. Even his promoter's instinct for hyperbole failed him in the face of the reality unfolding before him. Midway through the 6th minute, Tyson connected with a solid right cross that rocked Norris back on his heels, the first clean, power punch to land squarely. A triumphant snarl twisted Tyson's features as he pressed his advantage, launching a follow-up left hook aimed at Norris's momentarily exposed jaw. Norris, despite the stunning impact of the first blow, managed to slip the second by a whisker's margin. He countered with a sharp elbow strike that opened a cut above Tyson's eye, drawing a collective gasp from the audience. Blood now streaming from his brow, partially obscuring his vision, Tyson's expression darkened further. The controlled aggression that had characterized his recent attack dissolved back into raw fury. He charged forward with a roar, abandoning technique for overwhelming force. Norris sidestepped the bull rush, using Tyson's momentum to guide him into the ropes at the edge of their makeshift ring. As Tyson bounced back, temporarily off balance, Norris delivered his first true combination. A quick succession of strikes to body, head, and sternum that landed with surgical precision. Tyson staggered, momentarily dazed but far from finished. His recovery time was phenomenal, a product of countless professional bouts. Within seconds, he had reset his stance, shaking his head to clear it, the predatory focus returning to his eyes. "You hit like a bitch," he spat, blood and saliva spraying from his lips. Norris didn't respond to the taunt, maintaining his center of calm amidst the storm of violence. This only infuriated Tyson further. "Say something," he demanded, launching another combination. "Talk shit like everyone else." Evading the strikes, Norris finally spoke. "Fighting isn't about talking, Mike. It's about listening." The cryptic response broke Tyson's rhythm for just an instant. A microsecond of confusion that created an opening. Norris exploited it perfectly, landing a clean strike to Tyson's temple that sent him stumbling sideways. For the first time, genuine alarm spread through the crowd. Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson, had been staggered by a punch. The unthinkable was suddenly, terrifyingly possible. Sensing the shift in energy, Rosa Martinez pushed closer to the ring's edge. "This needs to end," she said to no one in particular, "before someone gets permanently damaged." Inside the ring, Tyson recovered quickly. But something had changed in his eyes, a flicker of doubt where there had only been certainty before. He approached more cautiously now, respect reluctantly entering his calculation. Norris recognized the change immediately. "You don't have to prove anything, Mike," he said quietly, just between the two of them. "Not to these people. Not to me. Not to yourself." Tyson's response was a lightning-quick jab followed by a devastating uppercut, both partially blocked but carrying enough force to rock Norris backward. "Save the therapy session," Tyson growled. "You're not my friend. You're not my equal. You're just another man who's going down." The exchange reignited the crowd, which had fallen into an almost reverent hush during the technical showcase. Bloodlust surged again, primal and demanding. "Finish him, Tyson," someone shouted. "Show him what real fighting is," called another. The chorus of voices seemed to feed Tyson's resolve. He pressed forward with renewed determination, cutting off the ring, forcing Norris toward the corner with a series of calculated attacks. For the first time, Norris found himself with diminishing space to maneuver. His back neared the ropes as Tyson closed the distance with predatory intent. "Nowhere to run now, movie star," Tyson taunted, sensing advantage. With his escape routes limited, Norris was forced to engage more directly. He met Tyson's next rush with a perfectly timed counterstrike, a spinning back kick delivered with such speed and precision that many in the audience didn't register it until Tyson was already flying backward. The kick connected squarely with Tyson's sternum, launching him off his feet. He crashed down onto the canvas with a heavy thud that seemed to shake the entire room, sliding several feet before coming to rest, flat on his back, eyes wide with shock. Absolute silence descended upon the pit, a vacuum of sound so complete it seemed to pull the oxygen from the room. Not a whisper, not a breath. Just hundreds of witnesses trying to process the impossible scene before them. Iron Mike Tyson, the most feared boxer of his generation, lay sprawled on his back, put there by a single kick. The moment stretched, suspended in collective disbelief. Then Tyson moved, rolling onto his side with a pained grunt. He pushed himself to one knee, then paused, one hand pressed against his chest where the kick had landed. His breathing came in labored gasps, his face a mask of pain and dawning realization. Norris hadn't advanced to capitalize on the knockdown. Instead, he had returned to center ring, his stance relaxed but ready, watching Tyson with careful assessment rather than triumph. Slowly, unsteadily, Tyson regained his feet. Blood from his cut eye had painted half his face crimson, giving him the appearance of a wounded predator. Dangerous. Perhaps more so for being injured. The crowd remained eerily silent, the atmosphere charged with potential energy, like the pressurized moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Tyson took one step forward, then another, gathering himself for what everyone sensed would be one final, devastating charge. His eyes had narrowed to focus points. All extraneous emotion burned away in the crucible of combat. Norris prepared himself. Weight perfectly centered. Hands raised in defensive position. The two fighters stood barely 10 feet apart, the entire underground arena holding its collective breath for the coming explosion of violence. Then, from somewhere in the back of the crowd, a single voice shattered the tension. "Tyson! Norris! Tyson! Norris!" The chant was quickly taken up by others, spreading through the audience like wildfire. Not a call for blood now, but a recognition of something rarer, genuine respect forged in the heat of combat. "Tyson! Norris! Tyson! Norris!" The rhythmic chant seemed to penetrate the red haze of Tyson's focus. He blinked, glancing around as if suddenly remembering they had an audience. The moment of pure combat fighter to fighter was broken by the intrusion of spectacle once again. Norris lowered his hands slightly, a subtle signal of de-escalation. "It's enough, Mike," he said, voice carrying despite the growing chant. "We've both made our point." For a moment, it seemed Tyson would ignore the opening for dignified closure. His body remained coiled, ready to explode forward. Then, unexpectedly, a different emotion crossed his face. Not surrender, not fear, but something more complex. Recognition, perhaps, or a flicker of self-awareness breaking through the battle rage. He straightened slightly, one hand still pressed against his chest where the kick had landed. "You think we're done?" he asked. But the question lacked its earlier venom. "I think we've answered the only question that matters," Norris replied. "Which is that neither of us has anything to prove." The simple statement hung in the air between them, cutting through the chants and the bloodlust and the spectacle. Fighter to fighter, stripped of pretense, Tyson's expression shifted through a complex series of emotions. Anger, confusion, reluctant understanding. His shoulders remained tense, hands still curled into fists. But something in his posture had changed. "This isn't over," he said. But the declaration lacked conviction. Norris held his gaze steadily. "It never is. With fighters like us." A mutual recognition passed between them, a moment of connection, beyond the violence, beyond the ego. For a fleeting second, they were simply two warriors acknowledging each other's journey. Then Tyson spat blood onto the canvas, breaking the moment. "Next time won't end this way." "There doesn't need to be a next time," Norris replied. The chanting had gradually subsided, the crowd sensing the confrontation winding down without the brutal conclusion they'd anticipated. Disappointment rippled through some sections, while others seemed relieved or even awed by the unexpected turn of events. Dante Vega, ever the opportunist, stepped forward with his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed tonight is unprecedented. A clash of titans ending in, 'Shut up,'" Tyson growled, silencing him instantly. Rosa Martinez approached the edge of the makeshift ring. "Time to clear the floor," she announced with quiet authority. "Show's over." Security guards began ushering spectators toward the exits, despite protests and lingering attempts to capture the aftermath on cameras. The spell that had held the underground arena in thrall was breaking, reality reasserting itself over the momentary magic of witnessing history. Tyson and Norris remained in the center, neither fully relaxing their guard, neither willing to be the first to turn away. "You got lucky," Tyson finally said, touching the cut above his eye. Norris shook his head slightly. Luck had nothing to do with it, Mike. You know that better than anyone. For a moment, Tyson's face hardened again, pride warring with the truth he'd felt in his body. Then, unexpectedly, a bark of laughter escaped him, harsh and genuine. You know what pisses me off the most, Norris? You're not even breathing hard. It was true. While Tyson's chest heaved with exertion, sweat pouring down his blood-streaked face, Norris appeared almost unnaturally composed. No labored breathing, no trembling muscles, just the same centered presence he'd maintained from the beginning. Different training, Norris said simply. Tyson snorted. Different something. He rolled his shoulders, wincing slightly at the movement. My chest's gonna feel that kick for a month. Probably. The exchange, strangely mundane after the intensity of their confrontation, seemed to deflate the last of Tyson's aggression. He looked around at the dissipating crowd, the blood-stained canvas, the forgotten bottle fragments still scattered across the concrete floor. What a shit show, he muttered. Norris didn't disagree. He began unwrapping the hand wraps he'd quickly applied before the fight, his movements methodical and unhurried. Tyson watched him for a moment, then abruptly turned and stalked toward the exit. Brushing past security guards and ignoring Vega's attempts to engage him again, Rosa Martinez fell into step beside Norris as he stepped off the canvas. That could have gone a lot worse, she observed. It still might, Norris replied quietly, nodding toward Tyson's retreating back. Men like Mike don't process humiliation well. Was it humiliation? Looked to me like you gave him a dignified way out. Perception and reality rarely align in moments like these. Norris retrieved his shirt from where he'd laid it aside. Especially once the stories start spreading. As if to emphasize his point, they overheard a nearby spectator already embellishing the encounter. Did you see Norris knock Tyson out cold? One kick, man. Laid him flat. Rosa shook her head in disgust. Truth dies quick in places like this. Truth dies quick everywhere, Norris corrected. It's just more obvious here. They made their way toward the exit, threading through the dispersing crowd. Occasional whispers and pointing followed them, the legend already growing with each retelling. You know he won't let this go, Rosa said as they reached the stairs leading up to street level. Not Mike Tyson. His whole identity is wrapped up in being the most dangerous man alive. Norris paused, looking back at the now empty ring. That's the tragedy of it. He's fighting an image, not an opponent. And you can never defeat an image. Philosophical for a man who just went toe-to-toe with Iron Mike. A small smile touched Norris's lips. Philosophy and fighting aren't as different as most people think. Both are about understanding the nature of conflict. Rosa studied him with newfound appreciation. You came here tonight knowing this would happen, didn't you? You weren't just watching fights, you were waiting for him. Norris didn't directly answer. I heard rumors that Mike had been spiraling lately. Coming to underground fights. Causing scenes. Looking for confrontations. It was only a matter of time before someone got seriously hurt. So what set yourself up as a lightning rod? Better me than some young fighter who doesn't know how to handle him. The realization of what Norris had done, deliberately placing himself in Tyson's path to prevent worse violence, settled over Rosa with newfound weight. That's either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever heard. Sometimes they're the same thing. He extended his hand to her. It was good meeting you, Martinez. Your reputation doesn't do you justice. She took his hand, feeling the controlled strength in his grip. Likewise, Norris. As they parted ways at the street level, Rosa couldn't shake the feeling that the night's events weren't truly concluded, that what she'd witnessed was merely the opening act of a longer, more complex drama between two men who carried the weight of their legends like invisible chains. The Las Vegas dawn painted the strip in surreal pastels, the neon glow fading against the rising Sunday. In his hotel suite at the Mirage, Chuck Norris moved through his morning routine with the same methodical precision he applied to everything. 60 push-ups, 60 sit-ups, 10 minutes of meditation. Physical soreness from the previous night's confrontation was minimal. Decades of discipline had conditioned his body to recover quickly. The mental residue, however, lingered. Violence always left its mark, regardless of outcome. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Room service, Mr. Norris." He hadn't ordered anything, but this didn't particularly surprise him. Word traveled fast in Vegas, especially among the city's invisible network of drivers, bellhops, and security personnel. Since checking in yesterday, he'd already received 3 complimentary bottles of whiskey and a fruit basket from various casino executives, hoping to keep him happy and spending money in their establishments. Opening the door, however, revealed not a room service cart but Rosa Martinez, dressed in a track suit and running shoes. "Morning," she said briskly. "We need to talk." Norris raised an eyebrow, but stepped aside to let her enter. "How did you find my room?" "Slipped the desk clerk $50. Don't worry. I told him I was your nutritionist." She strode into the suite, glancing around at its understated luxury. "Nice digs. What's so urgent it couldn't wait for a phone call?" Rosa turned to face him, her expression grave. "Tyson's gone on a rampage. Started at Caesars around 3 a.m., moved to the MGM, then the Bellagio, trashed a high-roller suite, put 2 security guards in the hospital." Norris's face remained impassive, but a muscle tightened along his jaw. "Witnesses?" "Dozens. Tourists, staff, gamblers, everyone's talking about it. And that's not all." She pulled a folded newspaper from her jacket. Morning edition just hit the stands. The headline of the Las Vegas Sun screamed in bold type. "Underground Showdown. Tyson challenges Norris, gets knocked out." Beneath it, a grainy photo showed Tyson sprawled on the canvas, Norris standing over him, the single moment of knockdown frozen and immortalized, stripped of all context. "It gets worse," Rosa continued, unfolding the paper to reveal the full story. "Apparently someone recorded part of it on one of those new mini camcorders. Local news ran the footage at 6 a.m. Norris took the paper, scanning the sensationalized account. According to the article, he had humiliated Tyson, delivering a devastating knockout that left the boxer unconscious for several minutes. Almost none of it was true. "They're saying you called him out," Rosa added. "That you planned the whole thing as a publicity stunt for your next movie." Norris set the paper down, his expression unchanged, but his eyes hardening slightly. "And Mike? That's why I'm here. Word is he's looking for you. And he's not in a talking mood. When he saw the news this morning." She shook her head. "It's bad, Chuck. He's convinced you set him up deliberately to embarrass him. I need to find him." "Are you crazy? He's drunk, rage-blind, and feels publicly humiliated. The Mike Tyson who's looking for you right now isn't the same one you faced last night. This one's dangerous." Norris moved to the window, looking out over the awakening city. "He was always dangerous. The difference is, now he's afraid too." "Afraid? Mike Tyson?" Rosa's skepticism was evident. "Fear and anger are 2 sides of the same coin, Rosa. Especially for fighters." He turned back to her. "What Mike fears isn't me, it's losing his identity as the most feared man alive. For someone who's built everything on that foundation, it's like staring into the abyss." Very philosophical. "Meanwhile, he's tearing apart the strip looking for you. Then I should make myself easier to find." Norris reached for his jacket. "Where was he last seen?" You cannot be serious. Rosa stepped between him and the door. You need to call your security team. Hole up somewhere safe until his rage burns out. This isn't about honor or closure anymore. It's about a man having a very public breakdown. Which is exactly why I need to find him before someone else gets hurt. Or before Mike does something that destroys what's left of his career. The two fighters locked eyes. Stubborn determination mirrored in both their faces. You're not responsible for saving Mike Tyson from himself, Rosa said finally. No, Norris agreed, but I'm partly responsible for pushing him over the edge. Realizing she wouldn't change his mind, Rosa sighed heavily. Last confirmed sighting was at the Flamingo. About 45 minutes ago. He had his entourage with him, 3 guys. All built like linebackers. They were headed toward the sportsbook. Thank you. Norris moved toward the door, then paused. Why did you come to warn me? You barely know me. Rosa's expression softened slightly. Because what I saw last night wasn't just technical fighting. I saw a man trying to end a confrontation without destroying his opponent's dignity. That's rare in our world. Norris acknowledged this with a small nod. If I'm not back in 3 hours, call the police. Not for my sake, for Mike's. Then he was gone, leaving Rosa standing in the middle of the hotel suite, wondering if she'd just helped prevent a disaster or enabled one. The Flamingo's sportsbook hummed with early morning activity, mostly bleary-eyed gamblers from the night before, nursing complimentary coffees while watching the opening lines on East Coast games. A few heads turned as Chuck Norris entered, whispers and pointing following in his wake, but no sign of Tyson or his entourage. The bartender, however, proved more helpful. Just missed him, the man said, eyeing Norris with obvious recognition. Headed to the fight shop at the Forum Shops. Something about getting proper gloves. The implication wasn't subtle. Norris thanked him and moved quickly through the casino toward the exit. Morning sunlight hit him with desert intensity as he emerged onto the strip. The sidewalks were already filling with tourists, most unaware of the charged drama playing out in their midst. As he walked briskly toward Caesar's Palace and its attached Forum Shops, Norris noted at least 3 people trailing him at a distance. Journalists or paparazzi, undoubtedly, hoping to witness the next chapter of what was rapidly becoming a media circus. He entered the marble-columned grandeur of Caesar's, nodding politely to security guards who straightened visibly at his approach. Their nervousness confirmed what Rosa had told him: the entire strip was on high alert for another Tyson incident. The Forum Shops, with their artificial sky and Roman-themed architecture, were just beginning their business day. Most storefronts were still opening, clerks arranging displays while early bird shoppers browsed with coffee cups in hand. Norris spotted the fight shop easily. Gladiators announced its presence with a window display of boxing gloves, martial arts gear, and fight memorabilia. And standing at the counter, his broad back to the entrance, was the unmistakable figure of Mike Tyson. 2 massive men, part of his entourage, stood nearby, their posture tense and alert. They spotted Norris immediately, nudging each other and whispering to Tyson, whose shoulders visibly stiffened. For a moment, time seemed suspended. Around them, oblivious shoppers continued their morning routines. A family with 2 small children walked past, the kids pointing excitedly at the boxing gloves in the window. Unaware they stood mere feet from 2 of the most dangerous fighters alive. Then Tyson turned slowly, his expression a mask of barely contained fury. The cut above his eye from their previous encounter had been professionally stitched, but the bruising around it had darkened to a vivid purple. "You've got some balls coming here," he growled, his voice carrying across the shop. The clerk behind the counter froze, recognition dawning in his eyes as he looked from Tyson to Norris and back again. Slowly, he backed away from the register. We need to talk, Mike, Norris said calmly, remaining near the entrance. Somewhere private. Nothing to talk about. Tyson gestured to a pair of boxing gloves on the counter. Just picking up the tools to finish what we started. One of Tyson's entourage, a mountain of a man with a gold tooth and sunglasses despite the indoor lighting, took a step forward. You should leave now, Mr. Norris. This isn't going to end well for you. That's not your call to make, Norris replied, not taking his eyes off Tyson. The shop had emptied quickly. Other customers sensing the dangerous tension and making hasty exits. Through the windows, a small crowd of onlookers had begun to gather. Phones and cameras appearing to record the confrontation. You set me up, Tyson said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. Made me look like a fool. Got the whole city laughing behind my back. That wasn't my intention, Mike. The media twisted everything, you know how they operate. Bullshit. Tyson took a step forward. You planned this from the start. Coming to the pit, playing the quiet tough guy, waiting for me to make a move, then making sure everyone sees you take me down. If that were true, I'd have brought my own cameras. Tyson's eyes narrowed, the logic penetrating his anger momentarily. Then he shook his head. Doesn't matter. The damage is done. Now it's time for payback. He lifted the gloves from the counter. Put these on. We finish this right now. In a shopping mall? With civilians all around? Norris gestured toward the gathering crowd outside. This isn't you, Mike. You're a professional, not a street brawler. Don't tell me who I am. Tyson's voice rose sharply. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through, what I've fought for. The raw pain beneath the anger was suddenly visible, a glimpse of the wounded man behind the fearsome persona. For all his fame and wealth, Mike Tyson was still the kid from Brownsville who had fought his way out of poverty and abuse, whose identity was inextricably tied to his reputation as the most feared fighter alive. Norris recognized the vulnerability in that moment and changed tactics. You're right, he said simply. I don't know your journey, but I do know something about carrying the weight of a reputation. Tyson's eyes flickered with surprise at the concession. We're not so different, Mike, Norris continued. We both know what it's like to have everyone expect us to be something, to live up to an image that gets larger than life. One of Tyson's entourage shifted uncomfortably. Mike, we should take this somewhere else. Too many cameras. But Tyson waved him off, his focus locked on Norris. You think we're the same? I fought my way up from nothing. Nobody handed me anything. I'm not saying our paths were the same, but the pressure, the constant eyes watching, judging, waiting for you to fail, that part we share. Something in Norris's words seemed to reach past Tyson's defensive rage. His shoulders lowered slightly, his grip on the boxing gloves loosening. Last night wasn't about humiliating you, Norris continued. It was about preventing something worse. You were headed down a path that ends badly for you, for the people around you, for someone who might get caught in the crossfire. So what, you're my savior now? The anger flared again, but with less heat. No. Just someone who's been around long enough to recognize the signs. Norris took a careful step forward. The bottle, Mike. The rage. The need to prove something. I've watched too many fighters destroy themselves that way. Outside the shop, security guards from Caesars had arrived, forming a perimeter around the growing crowd of onlookers. Someone in an expensive suit, likely a casino executive, was speaking urgently into a phone, eyeing the situation with barely concealed panic. Look around you, Norris said, nodding toward the windows. This isn't going to end well for either of us. But you've got more to lose than I do. Tyson followed his gaze, taking in the crowd, the cameras, the security presence. For a moment, reality seemed to penetrate the fog of anger and wounded pride. They want a show, he muttered, always wanting a show. Let's not give them one then. Norris gestured toward a service corridor, visible at the back of the shop. There's another way out. Let's use it. Find somewhere quiet to talk this through. The gold-toothed member of Tyson's entourage stepped closer to his boss. Mike, the cops are probably already on their way. We need to move. Tyson stood frozen in indecision, the boxing gloves still clutched in his hands, his face a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Norris extended his hand, not in challenge, but in offer. Your choice, Mike. But whatever you decide, you're not facing it alone. The gesture, simple yet profound, hung in the air between them, a bridge across the chasm of pride and pain that separated them. Outside, sirens became audible in the distance. The Las Vegas sun beat down mercilessly as Chuck Norris followed Tyson's Mercedes through the winding roads to Henderson. A sprawling desert mansion appeared behind high walls and electronic gates that sealed them off from the growing media circus trailing in their wake. Inside the house, evidence of Tyson's rage was everywhere: overturned furniture, broken glass, a fist-shaped dent in the wall. J.D. Tyson's slender aide quickly straightened a toppled chair while Bones, the gold-toothed bodyguard, eyed Norris with suspicion. So talk, Tyson demanded, pacing the center of the living room. You wanted to talk, right? I never intended last night to become public. Norris replied calmly. What happened at the pit should have stayed there. But it didn't, Tyson snapped. It's everywhere, Norris KOs Tyson. My phone hasn't stopped ringing: promoters canceling appearances, sponsors getting nervous. I understand your frustration. You understand? Tyson's voice rose sharply. I'm Mike Tyson. Every day, people are waiting for me to fall, waiting to see the baddest man on the planet get taken down. The raw pain beneath the anger was suddenly clear. For all his fame and fortune, Tyson lived in a cage of expectations, far more confining than any boxing ring. It's all built on fear, Tyson continued, his voice dropping. The money, the respect, the power. People fear me, so they pay to watch me. He stopped abruptly, facing Norris with unexpected vulnerability. And now they're laughing. Mike Tyson knocked out by a movie star. That's not what happened, and you know it, Norris replied. Doesn't matter what really happened, it's what they're saying happened. Tyson gestured angrily toward the windows. Perception is reality in this business. Then change the perception. The simple statement caught Tyson off guard. What? Change the narrative. Right now, the story is being told by everyone except the two people who were actually there. You and me. J.D. stepped forward. He's right, Mike. We can get ahead of this. Call a press conference. Both of you together. And say what? Tyson's laugh was harsh. That we had a friendly sparring session? No one's gonna buy that. We tell the truth, Norris said. That two fighters with mutual respect engaged in an impromptu demonstration that was blown out of proportion. Mutual respect? Tyson's eyes narrowed. After I came at you with a broken bottle? Heat of the moment. It happens. Why would you do that for me? Because the truth matters more than headlines. And because I respect what you've accomplished too much to see it tarnished by one night. The sincerity in Norris's voice penetrated Tyson's defensiveness. The mask slipped, revealing the wounded man beneath a fighter still battling demons deeper than any he'd faced in the ring. You don't know me, Tyson said, his voice quieter. You don't know the things I've done. I know enough. I know you fought your way out of circumstances that would have broken most men. Tyson turned to the window, staring at the desert landscape. You know what scares me most? Not losing fights. Not even prison. He pressed his forehead against the glass. It's becoming a joke. A punchline. Remember Mike Tyson? The guy who had it all and threw it away. That's not how your story has to end, Mike. Tyson turned back. His expression hardened, but with determination rather than rage. Last night, in the fight, you could have ended it earlier, couldn't you? You were holding back. Norris considered carefully. We were both testing boundaries. It's what fighters do. No, you were in control from the start. I felt it. Before Norris could respond, the security system chimed. Press vans at the gate, JD announced. 3 of them. Vultures. Bones muttered. See what I mean? Tyson's expression darkened. Can't escape them. So, don't escape. Norris replied. Face them. On your terms. With you? Tyson asked skeptically. If that's what you want, JD interrupted again. Mike, they're calling the house. If we don't give them something, they'll camp outside all day. Tyson considered, the pressure visible in his face. What would we even say? The truth, Norris answered. Or at least the part that matters. And what's that? That 2 fighters from different worlds discovered they had more in common than either expected. After a moment of searching Norris's face for any deception, Tyson turned to JD. Tell them we'll make a statement in 1 hour. Here. At the gates. Alone again with Norris. Tyson's posture softened slightly. This doesn't make us friends. No. Norris agreed. But it does make us fellow travelers. The phrase resonated with Tyson. He nodded slowly. A flicker of understanding passing between them, 2 men who had walked different paths to the same isolated peak, where companions were rare. An hour later, they stood before a wall of cameras and microphones. Tyson, now wearing a black suit and tie, spoke with controlled power. Last night, Chuck Norris and I had an altercation that has been grossly misrepresented. His eyes swept across the press. Contrary to reports, there was no knockout, no humiliation. There was a heated exchange between 2 fighters who respect the craft enough to test each other's limits. He stepped back, inviting Norris forward. Mike Tyson is one of the greatest boxers in history. Norris stated clearly. What happened last night was not a fight in any official sense. It was a spontaneous exchange between 2 athletes from different disciplines. As they turned to leave, a reporter shouted, Mike, the casino security footage is online. Are you denying you smashed furniture and threatened staff? Tyson froze, shoulders tensing, hands curling into fists. The moment balanced on a knife's edge, Norris moved slightly closer. Remember why we're here, he said quietly. With visible effort, Tyson unclenched his fists. His breathing steadied. I lost my temper last night, he acknowledged. I've been dealing with personal issues. That's not an excuse. Just a fact. I'm working on it. His voice dropped, almost as though speaking to himself. That's all I've got to say. He walked away, without looking back. This time, no reporter called after him. Norris lingered briefly. Mike Tyson is a fighter, he said simply. Inside the ring and out. That deserves respect. Not sensationalism. He followed Tyson into the house, leaving the press to digest a story far more complex than the simple narrative of conflict they had expected to feed upon. 3 nights later, the pit hummed with fevered anticipation. The underground fighting venue had transformed from local secret to must-visit destination virtually overnight. The crowd was twice its normal size, packed shoulder to shoulder on metal bleachers, the air thick with sweat and expectation. Every fighter on the card knew tonight wasn't about them. They were merely placeholders in a narrative that had outgrown the confines of this concrete basement. Dante Vega strutted across the blood-stained canvas, gold chains swinging against his open silk shirt, basking in reflected glory. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, voice booming through cheap speakers, "welcome to the most talked-about fighting venue in America, the place where legends collide and history is made." The crowd roared its approval. Phones raised to capture every moment, everyone hoping to witness lightning strike twice. Rosa Martinez observed from her position near the back wall, nursing a club soda. "Vultures," she muttered, watching spectators who had paid triple the usual cover charge, not for the scheduled fights, but for the slim possibility of another Tyson-Norris confrontation. The evening's matches proceeded with their usual brutality: technical knockouts, split lips, concussion protocols, but even the most vicious combinations somehow felt anticlimactic. The audience applauded perfunctorily, attention constantly drifting toward the entrance, waiting for the real show to begin. Between bouts, Vega worked the room with relentless energy, sliding between VIP tables where newcomers with fat wallets and thin connections to fighting legitimacy held court. "Exclusive rights to the rematch," he whispered to a group of potential investors, conspiratorial excitement in his voice. "Both camps in serious talks. 8 figures minimum. Pay-per-view guarantees." "Bullshit," Rosa interrupted, setting her empty glass on their table with deliberate force. Vega's smile faltered. "Excuse me, gentlemen," he said smoothly before pulling Rosa aside. "What the hell, Martinez? I'm working here." "You're selling snake oil," she countered, eyes hard. "There's no rematch in the works. No deals. No negotiations. What do you know about it?" Vega's voice carried a defensive edge, enough to know when someone's talking out of their ass. She gestured toward the crowded room. "You're trading on something that was never yours to sell." Vega's facade cracked slightly, revealing the desperation beneath. "Come on, Rosa. The pit needs this. After what happened, we could be something bigger. Something legitimate." "The pit is what it is," she replied firmly. "A place for fighters to test themselves without bureaucracy. Start chasing celebrity, and you'll lose what made this place matter." A sudden shift in the crowd's energy cut their argument short. Like a ripple effect, heads turned toward the entrance, conversation dying as awareness spread through the room. The sea of bodies parted instinctively, creating a pathway through the center of the arena. Chuck Norris moved through the space with measured steps and quiet confidence. But this time, he wasn't alone. Mike Tyson walked beside him, not trailing, not leading, but shoulder to shoulder. Their unlikely alliance created an immediate vacuum of sound. 300 spectators, collectively holding their breath. "Holy shit," Vega whispered, eyes widening with disbelief and opportunistic glee. He grabbed for his microphone, already calculating the promotional value. Rosa caught his wrist. "Don't," she warned. "This isn't for you." Tyson and Norris reached the fighting area, but made no move to enter it. Instead, they stood at its edge, surveying the scene with matched expressions of calm assessment. The crowd's shock transformed into electric excitement. Phones emerged from pockets and purses, cameras flashing as everyone scrambled to document the unexpected reunion. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Something momentous was clearly about to happen. Vega broke free from Rosa's grip and hurried forward, microphone clutched like a lifeline. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice pitched to dramatic heights. "The moment you've all been waiting for. The return of—" "We're not here to fight," Norris stated quietly. The simple declaration, delivered without drama, silenced Vega mid-sentence. "Then, why are you here?" he asked, genuine confusion breaking through his promoter's persona. Tyson stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. The barely contained fury that had defined him during their last encounter had vanished, replaced by something more centered. Still powerful, but channeled with purpose rather than rage. "We're here to set the record straight," he announced, voice carrying across the now silent arena. "About what happened. About what it meant." Vega's promotional instincts recovered quickly. "Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. The exclusive inside story of the battle that broke the internet." "Not a battle," Norris corrected. "A lesson." Tyson nodded in agreement. "For both of us." Vega's smile faltered as he sensed control of the narrative slipping away. "Perhaps you'd like to step into the ring. Give the audience a better view for this explanation?" "We're fine right here," Tyson replied firmly. From her position at the back, Rosa suppressed a smile at Vega's obvious discomfort. The promoter thrived on spectacle. Genuine human moments were outside his expertise. Tyson surveyed the crowd, his expression thoughtful. "Most of you came tonight, hoping to see a repeat of what happened before. Maybe even something more violent, more dramatic." Murmurs of embarrassed recognition rippled through the audience. "I get it," Tyson continued. "I built my career on that spectacle. The knockouts, the rage, the beast, unleashed." He paused, glancing briefly at Norris. "But eventually you have to ask yourself, are you controlling the beast? Or is it controlling you?" The philosophical question hung in the air, unexpected from a man known more for his fists than his insights. What happened between Chuck and me wasn't about who's tougher or whose fighting style is better. It was about something more basic: control versus chaos. Norris stepped forward, his quiet presence complementing Tyson's intensity. "Every fighter faces the same fundamental choice," he added. "To use their power destructively or constructively. It's not about the technique, it's about the intention behind it." The crowd absorbed this wisdom in respectful silence. Even Vega seemed momentarily speechless, the microphone hanging forgotten at his side. "I've spent most of my life choosing destruction," Tyson admitted, raw honesty in his voice. "In the ring, outside the ring, smashing through obstacles instead of finding ways around them." He turned to face Norris directly. "Then I ran into someone who showed me what real power looks like. Not domination, not fear control. Discipline. You always had those qualities, Mike," Norris responded. "You couldn't have become champion without them. They were just buried beneath other things." The exchange, intimate yet conducted before hundreds of witnesses, carried the weight of authenticity that no promotional hype could manufacture. This wasn't performance, it was revelation. "So no, there won't be a rematch," Tyson announced, addressing the collective disappointment in the room, because there was never really a match to begin with. Just two fighters at different points on the same journey. Vega, recovering his promotional instincts, raised his microphone. "But surely the fans deserve the truth," Tyson cut him off. "Not another packaged spectacle." Norris nodded. "What happened here was private between fighters. It should have stayed that way. But since it didn't," Tyson added, "we wanted to set the record straight. Not through press conferences or prepared statements. Here, where it started." The sincerity in his voice affected even the most hardened spectators. A different kind of respect was visible in their faces now, not the fearful awe Tyson usually commanded, but something deeper, more genuine. One last thing, Tyson said. The stories, the videos, the rumors, most of it's bullshit. Chuck Norris didn't knock me out. And I didn't have him on the ropes either. What happened then? Someone called from the crowd. Tyson and Norris exchanged a look, a silent communication between two warriors who had crossed an invisible threshold together. We recognized each other, Norris answered simply. With that cryptic response, they turned to leave, moving through the crowd with the same purposeful calm with which they had entered. No dramatic exit, no final declarations, just two fighters who had said what they came to say. As they neared the exit, Rosa Martinez stepped into their path. That was unexpected, she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. Life's full of surprises, Tyson replied, his expression softened. Some better than others. She studied both men with a fighter's assessment. You two training together now? Exchanging ideas, Norris corrected diplomatically. Uh-huh. Rosa's skepticism was evident. And how's that going? A genuine smile, rare and valuable, crossed Tyson's face. Let's just say I'm learning there's more than one way to be powerful. About time, she replied, but without malice. Behind them, Vega was already spinning their appearance into promotional gold, his voice booming. You heard it here first, folks. The historic reconciliation. Only at the pit. Some things never change, Tyson observed with resignation. People will always try to profit from other people's journeys, Norris replied. Doesn't mean the journey isn't worth taking. Rosa stepped aside. Where to now? Tokyo next month, Tyson said. Training camp starts tomorrow. And you? She asked Norris. Film in Texas. Back to normal life. There was a hint of irony in his voice, acknowledging that normal meant something different for men like them. As they reached the door, Tyson paused, surveying the underground arena one last time, the place where chaos and control had collided, where reputation had met reality. You know what's funny? He said quietly. A week ago, I would have torn this place apart if someone looked at me wrong. Now, he shook his head, almost bemused. Now I see it for what it is. Just a room full of people searching for something they don't understand. And what's that? Rosa asked. The difference between being feared and being respected. Tyson's gaze met Norris's. Took me my whole life to figure that one out. With that final reflection, they stepped into the Las Vegas night, two legends whose paths had crossed momentarily but significantly, forever altering the trajectory of both. Behind them, the pit continued its business of blood and spectacle, already incorporating their appearance into its mythology. Stories would be told, embellished, twisted to fit the narratives people preferred to believe. But the truth remained simpler and more profound. In a world that glorified destruction, two masters of controlled violence had found unexpected common ground. Not in combat, but in the universal struggle to harness power with purpose, to make peace with the warrior within. As they walked away, neither man spoke. No words were necessary. They had already said everything that mattered in the language they both understood best, the honest dialogue of fighters who had tested their limits and discovered something more valuable than victory. Respect earned, not demanded. Strength defined by restraint, not release. And the recognition that the fiercest battles are always fought within ourselves. Up next, we have two more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.